we saw all that stuff, and it was just a little weed, and people were smoking it, and not a big deal. You get a nice little buzz on. That's not the case anymore. Marijuana is intensely different now. I said one time that this is not your mama's marijuana. And that's true, because there's a process in drugs called stepped on, where other things are added to the basic drug itself. And marijuana now is stepped on with cocaine, with powerful forms of THC, and other drugs that are intensely harmful. So please, I don't know, you know, I'm getting that look back from you, and you're going, yeah, whatever. But don't, okay? Please, don't. Anybody know who Mickey Hutchins is? Mickey Hutchins is a police officer in Winston-Salem. He was a police officer. On October 7th, he got called to a Bojangles restaurant. There was a young man there who was involved in a domestic dispute with his ex-wife. When Officer Hutchins got there, the young man ran out the back of the restaurant. Officer Hutchins and his partner, a guy named Daniel Clark, ran after this young man. And they caught up to the young man, and they fired at the young man. The young man turned, he fired at Officer Hutchins and Officer Clark. He killed Officer Hutchins. He critically wounded Officer Clark. Officer Clark lived, however. But he killed Officer Hutchins. So we're hearing all this news report, and the guy that they cite as the assailant, the guy who was the gunman, is a guy named Monta Evans. And so we hear all this on the news, and I go, what did he just say? Did he say Monta Evans? And Susan said, yeah, that's what he said. I know Monta Evans. They shot and killed Monta Evans in response to his shooting. I know Monta Evans because part of my job requires me to go into the Forsyth County Detention Center and try and help people out who are in there for drug addiction. Monta Evans was a guy that I had worked with and a guy that I knew, but a guy who ultimately decided that he didn't need anything from me, that I was just some old guy who didn't have anything to tell him. Would anybody like to care to guess what Monta Evans was in jail for, sir? Marijuana. It was just a little weed. He just smoked a little weed. It didn't mean anything. It was the 5th time that Monta Evans had gone to jail. I deal with it all the time, bless you. I deal with it all the time of young men who are sitting there in jail in jumpsuits, wearing flip-flops, and telling me, I don't have a problem. I just smoke a little weed. And yet, so I ask them often, where are you sitting? What's that you're wearing? What's that on your feet? That's the other thing about drug addiction, is denial is a powerful force. Do you all know what denial is? Tell me. It's okay. What is denial? Anybody? Denial is thinking you don't have a problem. That's all. Now, that won't happen to me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to single you out. I thought you would not, and I beg your pardon. But denial, most of the guys in jail that I deal with are there for just marijuana. They don't think they have a problem, and I was the same way. So when Susan and I were driving down tonight, we came upon this truck, and this truck looked like it was about to be set afire. I mean, out of the stacks at the back of this big truck, there was smoke coming up so much that you could see the smoke for about a mile as we're traveling south or north of this truck, and all of a sudden we're wondering, where's that fire coming from? And so we finally, as he's driving down the road and we're able to catch up to this truck, he's sending smoke everywhere, to the point where most of us trying to get by him are blinded and can't even get by him. We're just sort of creeping by. And he's just driving along. He's got his flashers on. He knows there's something wrong, but he's got his flashers on and he just keeps going. And Susan said he had half a dozen opportunities to pull over and get some help. Why does he just keep plowing along and endangering the rest of us. That's exactly what a drug addict does. I got no problem. I'm not harming anybody. I'm just going to keep going, doing what I'm doing, and blinding everybody else around me. That truck is exactly what I was like. I think that's a wonderful analogy that God gave me. Right then and there, when I'm looking for something to say to you, He gave me that illustration. We just keep plowing along. We just keep blinding the rest of the world. And the heck with them. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Okay? The other thing I want you to know about is I met a guy named Coley. That's not his real name, but I'm supposed to protect his confidentiality. And I met him on Friday. He came into our agency for what's called an intake and an assessment. He had a probation officer who told him, I've had enough of you. You've got to go get some treatment somewhere, or I'm going to send you to jail again. So I want you to go down to this office and talk to these people down there. Coley was there for what? Marijuana. Okay? And so one of the glam parts of my job is I get to do what's called a UDS. Anybody care to imagine what that stands for? It stands for urine drug screen. So when you come into my office, you've got to pee into a cup, and if you're a guy, I get to watch you. Unless you cheat. And drug addicts will try and cheat. So I get to go into the bathroom, and I get to watch while somebody pees in a cup. It's part of the reason why I get paid big money. Okay? So anyway, Coley and I, we go in, and we got to handle this part of the protocol. And I said, you know what, Coley, why are you here? And he said, I'm here for marijuana. And he explains the whole why he's there. And I said, you know what, Coley, I'm going down to South Carolina, and I'm going to speak to a youth group on Sunday night. If you were me, what would you say? And now remember, he was in there for marijuana. He said, tell him don't, first thing. Please, tell him from me, don't. This is a guy who's this far away from going to jail, who's really screwed up his life. But if he's going to do one last thing, he's going to try and make it positive, and he hopes that you all don't do what he's doing. But then in the next breath he says, but they probably won't listen. They probably won't listen to you. They probably won't listen to me either. So tell him this. He had gotten hooked on crack cocaine and gotten hooked on heroin as well. He said he never, ever would have tried crack cocaine. He never would have tried heroin had it not been for first trying what? Marijuana. There's a term in addiction called a gateway drug. And a gateway drug literally means that you try one thing and it opens the gate to try something else. Now you can go online and there are a number of websites that will tell you that that's complete baloney. But all I know is Coley. And Coley said had it not been for first trying marijuana, he tried marijuana, the inhibitions went down just enough where he saw somebody else getting high on something else. And he said, man, I think I want to try that. That looks pretty good. And so then he was off to the races. And I understand Coley's point of view because it's the same as mine. I tried alcohol when I was 15 years old. Man, I got a buzz that I spent 25 years trying to get back. And I never got it. So what did I do? To get that buzz, you try more and more, or you try different stuff. I tried everything from pain medications, to powdered cocaine, to marijuana, to acid, you name it. Trying to get that buzz back. That's the awful thing about addiction. And if you think it won't hit you by just trying it once, think again. The chances are very good. Was there anybody here when I was here in April? Anybody remember? Were you here then? Or we got 10 people. Remember you stood up?